Thank you everyone so much for joining us at this webinar today. My name's Lisa Harvey-Smith. I'm a professor of practice at the University of Sydney. New South Wales, that was funny. Good typo there. And I am also the program ambassador for Future You. Now, I have been on holiday for 3 weeks, hence forgetting which university I work at, but it is a privilege to host you at this webinar today for Future You and our team at UNSW Sydney. What we're going to do today is three things: is talk about Future You and the program. We're going to get some great insights from our guests, and we're going to get amazing insights and some real discussion from all of us here. So I'm really excited to have experts such as yourself joining us, and we're all going to learn a lot from each other. So I'm privileged to be joining today from Muanina country, and I want to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which I join you from, but also recognizing that this is a national webinar. So I'd like to extend this acknowledgement to elders from all the countries across the lands we all live on across Australia today. So I want to acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander individuals who might be joining us today and extend that respect. And let's remember that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples were the very first scientists, and embedding their knowledge and understanding from tens of thousands of years is really, really important. And we recognize that truth as we try to commit ourselves towards justice and reconciliation in the future as well. So I want to start today with the agenda. So we'll set the scene, talk about the current STEM equity landscape, and I'll give a little bit of a yarn about my own upbringing and how some of those experiences contributed to my career in STEM. Won't take too long over that, but I think it's interesting to reflect on ourselves as well as the research on what helps young people really feel part of STEM. Then we'll go to our special guest, Cameron Rodgers, who will talk about his experience in the classroom and how STEM equity has been embedded in education in his context. And then it will be over to you, the breakout sessions, connecting, learning and sharing best practice, and thinking about, how we can all embed these learnings into our education practice and make the world better for everyone and make all students feel like they're part of STEM. I wanted to introduce Future You firstly. We're very proud of the program. It's been around for a few years now, and it's a national STEM education program hosted by us at UNSW and jointly funded by our university, the University of Sydney and the Optiva Foundation. So 3 funding sources there. We work with educators to address stereotypes and biases about who belongs in STEM. And we want to engage these students around 8 to 12 years old through these free curriculum aligned resources. So we've got things like Pathfinders, role model series, and Imagining the Future short stories, and lots more besides. And these materials, as I've said, are all free. They can be downloaded from our website, and they're designed to spark curiosity, build confidence and connect classroom learning to the real world. So not only students, but the adults, ourselves and parents and carers even can understand more about how what young people learn in the classroom or in the educational settings can really translate to the real world and their possible career journeys as well. And it's about building confidence, resilience and role models. So that's really important to understand the context of what we're talking about here. And look, I wanted to just share a little bit of my own learning journey and a little bit of the research behind what sparked Future You. And in particular, my own career, I reflect on my career as an astrophysicist, as a scientist who researches space and the stars. Over the past 20 years, I've had the real joy and pleasure to work with some of the most high-tech and powerful telescopes around the world, to study using supercomputers as well, and all this amazing equipment, and with amazing colleagues and smart people from different walks of life to study fundamental physics and how astrophysics works, how stars and galaxies evolve and form and die, and how black holes suck them into oblivion. It's been an incredible journey. I've got to travel around the world and do amazing things that I probably couldn't have dreamt of before. So that began really when I was a child, and I wasn't interested in science. I was more of a sporty kid, to be quite honest. I dreamt of being in the Olympics, not winning a Nobel Prize. Turns out I'll do neither, but that's not important. The important thing is the journey and the options that that education has given me and the choices to create impact in the world and to use not only my scientific brain but my creative brain and to collaborate with people to generate things that I hope are useful in the world. And I think that's what we all want for our young people, to have those opportunities. Now, in particular, I look back to when I was 12 years old and I just started home education. I went to primary school, and then at 11, I decided to learn at home. So, of course, I didn't have teachers as such, as role models. I didn't have access to a lot of that. So it was really through the media or through books or through experiences and clubs and societies, as it turned out, that allowed me to have those role models in STEM that helped me to see a place for myself. I didn't have parents who had been to university, as many people didn't of our age didn't. But actually, my early interest was nurtured by joining a local astronomical club, which was full of 65 to 80-year-old men. But it didn't matter that the role models I was seeing weren't exactly like me. These people were kind and generous with their time. They helped me learn more, and they took me to other places where I could get access to those role models. For example, I went to, the National Planetarium in London, and I met Patrick Moore, who was this amazing science communicator in the UK. And, I asked him how to become an astronomer, and he gave me advice, and it was just incredible. Another year, I went to the National Space School in the UK, and I met Helen Sharman, who was Britain's first astronaut. And I was just so incredibly excited to meet her. I don't think I've ever been that excited to meet anyone before. And again, just to have access to those people, even fleetingly, was incredible. So those STEM role models for me were my key to understanding that astronomy for me wasn't just an interest, it was something I could really pursue and something that I could connect with because of those personal experiences. And there's also an emerging body of research about that and the importance of role models. So, a lot of students have ideas about what people working in STEM are like, and it might be things from TV shows like The IT Crowd or the awful physics shows that you get where people are nerdy and they have poor social skills. And that really doesn't help when we're trying to encourage young people to see themselves in STEM. So one particular study that I find quite interesting is the Draw a Scientist study. And they've actually been, since 1966, when the first Draw a Scientist study came out, there have been 80 separate studies where they've asked young people to just draw a scientist and see what happens. Now, in 1966, in that first study, only 0.6% of all images showed a woman scientist. And they did it again in 2025. And again, 2 years ago, last year, 82% of grade 4 and 5 students, 84% of pre-service teachers, and 79% of in-service teachers drew a man. So we're still up in the 80%. While 86% of grade 4 and 5 students drew a Caucasian person, and 88% drew a scientist working in isolation. So these stereotypes are still alive and well. Things have shifted a tiny bit in some studies, but really we've got to shape our future career aspirations of our young people more actively, because that really matters. And if young people can't see themselves as scientists and they can't see themselves reflected as people who work in STEM and use science and technology to build a better future, then that is a real shame. So challenging biases and stereotypes about what STEM is and who belongs in STEM is really vital, especially from a really early age. So if STEM isn't part of your sphere of knowledge, then you really can't explore it as a young person. I'm not saying that children have to necessarily pick STEM as their preferred career from a young age, but it really is important they don't shut the door on that possibility, so that they're open-minded and they have a curious and growth mindset, and that they feel like they could belong in that world. Because everyone belongs in STEM. Been saying that for years, and that we can only solve the problems of the world if we include everyone in STEM. Teaching you to suck eggs out. I'm sure you agree with those sentiments. You're here, you're educators, you're highly experienced people. But that's what the research tells us, and that's what my personal experience tells us too. So how does that translate into classroom practice? And that's the next interesting question I wanted to ask. Now, to help us figure that out, I'm really delighted to welcome once again our very special guest, Cameron Rodgers, who I've spoken to before about these issues. Now, Cameron's a deputy principal and an education innovator at Sarah Redfern High School. He's committed to advancing STEAM education with a focus on gender and socio-economic equity. Now, Cameron's got amazing irons in the fire all over the joint. He's founded Biology Bloke, a conservation media and education platform that documents global wildlife and sustainability stories. I've got to jump on that one. And he's currently pursuing a PhD as well in the intersection of conservation education, digital media, and equitable access to STEAM learning. Cameron, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm not going to be able to walk out of this room with my head that size after that intro, so thank you so much. Before I begin, I'd just like to follow with Professor Lisa Harvey-Smith's first initial sentiments of acknowledging country. I'd like to say a big Nuggambi, which is how we say hello here in Dharawal country in the southwest of Sydney. So Dharawal country goes from the Georges River in the west all the way to the coast in the east. So we call it Kalbunya, which is lyrebird, and Buri Buri, whale. So Kalbunya and Buri Buri Nura, so land of the lyrebird and the whale, and they're two really close spiritual ancestors that our community sticks to and remains strong, as Lisa said, with my close love of conservation, but all things STEM, which I'm sure we'll get to in a second. So I'd like to further extend my respects to any knowledge holders of the past, present and emerging, as well as any Aboriginal and or Torres Strait Islanders individuals here with us today. So before getting into the what, I always love to go into the why, about why I do things and why our community does things at Sarah Redfern High School. So if anyone, people may think Sarah Redfern High School, Redfern in the middle of Sydney. No, we are in the southwest of Sydney in Minto, and I'll be talking very deeply about our community. So my why is I actually grew up 5 minutes around the corner from Sarah Redfern High School in a place called Claymore. I lived in Housing Commission. I still have 5 brothers and sisters, and I was raised by a single mother who worked 3 jobs just to keep food on the table. If anyone knows Claymore, I've heard of it. In 2014, we were the second stab capital in all of Australia, which is an infamous title for us. Just to give you a background of the sort of adversity that I faced as a young individual, and there was 2 paths for me, really. One was rugby league, and the next was incarceration. So I was an avid rugby league player. I played rugby league at the age of 15. I was in the under-20s for the Cronulla Sharks, and I was very, very close to making it to the NRL. Unfortunately, 14 concussions in a row later led me basically out of that career, and I was extremely lost. As you can see right there, I suffered from a disease called anorexia and almost died 3 times from that disease. Now, an individual in an adverse environment like that, you have that second path. I was going down some deep and dark paths until exactly what Professor Harvey-Smith said was I had a mentor. It was the first positive male role model I've ever had in my life. His name was Scott Swindle. He's a science teacher at my school that I went to as a young fellow called Robert Townsend High School. He sat me down and he said, "Cam, mate, you can do anything you put your mind to. You just need to believe in yourself." It was the first time I ever heard those words at the age of 17. And so I said, I want to be a doctor. I loved medicine, looking at all the doctors in footy. I want to be a doctor. And a lot of people in my community at the time, they pretty much laughed. No one in my family had gone past year 10. And so I worked extremely hard with my educators, just like all of you, as you are dedicated to your students. And I was the first individual to pass year 10 in my family, to go through to year 12, and then go into the Doctor of Medicine. However, there was something missing throughout my time in university. I really wanted to give back to the broader community. Whilst being able to do that in a medical profession, I really want to impact the young individuals in this country, just like Scott Swindle did for me. And so I've been an educator for about 8 years now. And as Lisa said, I'm the Deputy Principal of Instructional Leadership at Sarah Redfern High School. I've had the great fortune of doing amazing things, meeting amazing people, and experiencing some great things with some amazing kids. And so that led me to being last year awarded one of Australia's Teacher of the Year awards. And as Lisa said, going all around the world, experiencing all things nature, to be able to broaden that scope of conservation education and bring that into every single classroom, regardless of background. So I guess that's the why in terms of what I do and where I am. Now into the what. So STEAM at Sarah Redfern High School. Sarah Redfern High School, like I said, is located in Minto. We have 56% of our students within the lowest socioeconomic quartile. To give you sort of a word to that number, on a grocery bill, that's 2 loaves of bread a week per student. So our students are significantly, they face challenges that no young individual should. However, we look at that as the pillars to our students' success. We try and look at those barriers that they face to be able to go, okay, if you can overcome these challenges into your day-to-day life, how can we support you in succeeding in your future? And that's where we developed our Nation First STEAM program. So I will say a lot of STEAM, really it's STEM. They're very interchangeable. But why we chose STEAM is exactly what Professor Harvey-Smith said at the beginning, is that many of our students at Sarah Redfern High School and the broader Minto community have no concept in terms of what this is. I'm sure you may, in your communities as well, you may have experienced similar things. We may have experienced this as pretty much what only fancy, rich people, smart people get to do. And so pretty much the exact same following the Draw a Scientist model, I asked ChatGPT to show me what a scientist looks like. And it's pretty much bang on par with what the exact study showed me. It was a white, elderly male in a lab coat, which is just not what STEM is. It's not what STEAM is. It's not what STEM is. So the reason why we named it STEAM is for the arts, the A. And that doesn't mean putting pretty pictures on anything, on planes or on robots. That means involving something I love to call phlegm. So that is all the subjects that we teach in either high school or in our primary years as well. All the subjects that get traditionally missed out in STEM. So that's your PDHPE, your history, languages, English, geography, and music. We really wanted to look at how can we use STEM as a concept and not a subject so we can break that barrier down. Moving on from what we see there is I want to show you a picture. Now this picture, if you don't mind me showing you, I'm sure you could all come to realize it's a garbage man. There's no STEM there, Cameron. What are you talking about? When in reality, a garbage man has to be able to understand waste management and recycling processes. They have to be able to utilize high quality machinery and GPS technology. They have to be able to understand location mechanisms in terms of where to drop and pick up a bin. They need to understand mathematics in terms of time and load bearing. And so most of the time, we might not view this profession as a STEM profession. However, us at Sarah Redfern High School, I commonly say it, I do not care if my students are a doctor, if they're an engineer, if they're a plumber, if they're the garbage man. My role is to use STEM as a concept to make you the best garbage man you can be. So that is our goal, is to utilize that as a concept rather than a subject. Now, following on in terms of the need for STEM and STEM equity as a broader scale is something that I very much harp on about, which is please take a look at it in your spare time. It does open your eyes and really supports you in next steps, no matter what context you're in. Whether you're from a low SES or a high SES area, this pretty much applies to everyone. So that's a STEM equity monitor that's conducted by the Department of Industry and Science and Resources, and it highlights the specific areas for us as educators to really target. So you can see there on the right-hand side, there's a 20% difference in terms of understanding or belief and access in the STEM field for low SES versus high SES environments, and there is a significant gap in the believing and accessing STEM for our young girls in the field, particularly within engineering. And that's something that a massive goal of ours at Sarah Redfern High School has been to overcome in an authentic manner. And so how do we do this? How have we done this since 2022 and achieved great results? Well, there's a common foundation that we've utilized that I again, you're more than welcome to take this on, and please feel free to do so. And that is looking at the community foundation model. And that is where everything we do at Sarah Redfern High School in our STEAM program focuses on our community. We have a background from my New South Wales educators of the HPGE policy that supports everything we do, as well as supporting individual potential. But the first and foremost thing is we want to give back to our community. How can our young individuals, whether they want to be a scientist, an astrophysicist, a garbage man, how can you better the Mintos, Campbelltown and Southwest Sydney community? In the first half of the year, I teach them concepts and utilise technology to solve a community-based issue. So, for example, Campbelltown's koala populations, which is one of the only known populations in Australia without chlamydia. So our kids, we go out into the community, we learn about these koalas, and we make pop-up picture books using augmented reality. The second half of the year, we ask our students to look at areas of interest or aspiration, and they pretty much develop their own curriculum. So to give you a background, the room I'm in right now, sorry, I'm taking you for a little tour. The room I'm in right now, this is, again, in Minto, the southwest of Sydney, is a beautiful room. This was originally a chair closet, an ugly yellow chair closet, and started out with paper aeroplanes. And so utilising this, we were able to break down these barriers and be able to develop a great resource like this for our community. Some of the results of which have been our students being able to access not just in community-based initiatives, but high-level university and industry partnerships. So on the screen in a second, you'll be able to see a couple of photos. You'll be able to see our students engaging with Animal Logic Animation Studios, which is at UTS, and our kids being able to learn from the animators of Happy Feet and the Lego Movie, so that they can really polish off designs that I can't teach them because I'm not the expert in the field. And that's a big thing as an educator is I highly recommend you pick up the phone and you ask the experts for help. Most of the time, you'll get an email back and you'll get usually a yes or here's some steps to support you moving forward. So our students have been able to not only overcome that STEM barrier, but also literacy and numeracy barriers as well, which we'll be able to see in our results here. So we'll be able to see that we've got some strong evidence of NAPLAN improvement using a STEM concept model rather than a subject. And so our NAPLAN results within our STEAM cohorts and years has shown that we've significantly increased in our NAPLAN results, so literacy and numeracy as a foundation, as well as within our key learning areas. This is without doing anything per se additional. It's using the scientific method and the design thinking process to overcome challenge community-based situations. The most important results that I have is the breaking down of pure barriers. And that's what we can see here on the next slide. Thank you. And so that is the engagement we have within our community. So we can see that in 2022, we only had a very small proportion of our primary school students engaging with Sarah Redfern High School, which, as we know as educators, our primary schools are the core of our community, especially as a high school educator. And so we've strongly increased this to the point that now we're servicing 500 students a year and pretty much almost on a fortnightly basis to be able to overcome that barrier as young as 6 years old, to be able to get hands-on with STEM and STEAM and look at what it's like and really break down what that traditional mode of a scientist or STEM worker looks like. This is the biggest one for me. And this one always makes me choke up a little bit because as a young individual in Campbelltown who had zero belief I could attain this in my field, only 57% of our students in 2022 to 57 believed they could achieve anything in the STEM field. So almost half. I'm so proud now to say that 97% of our students at Sarah Redfern High School feel they can attain in the STEM field, utilizing STEM as a concept rather than an overall subject notion. Not only that, without doing any inauthentic manner, it is all done through an authentic manner. As you can see, even something as small as color selection and utilizing the arts, we've been able to engage more girls. We have 80% of our STEAM cohort coming in next year is girls, and that's without us randomly selecting. We use number-based student numbers rather than names to be able to really show that the engagement is authentic from our gender equity areas that we want to grow in. So that's pretty much everything we've done at Sarah Redfern High School. I cannot thank the future you as a whole. I was just showing that because I'm in our little fancy room. We utilize these task cards. I know Professor Harvey-Smith said it's from ages 8 to 12. These little Pathfinder cards are what I show every single day to be able to go, Well, do you know what? An entomologist, which really bugs me, that's a science joke for all of you out there. So an entomologist, that is what what a STEM advocate looks like. A patisserie chef. You think you can't do it? I've got a young individual in Year 9 who wants nothing more than to be a patisserie chef. Well, here's how we can use STEM to break down that barrier for you and make you the best patisserie chef you can be. So that's enough of my yapping. Please feel free to reach out at any point or any time. I'll be more than happy to share my email afterwards. So thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate your time.
Amazing. Thank you. That was so good, Cameron. And I love hearing your story. And I love hearing especially the practice and the fact that you're measuring the outcome and the impacts as well. Absolutely brilliant. Now that's the end of our webinar today, and a huge thank you to Cameron Rodgers, who's generously shared his time and expertise with us today. And a massive thank you to you as well for listening and learning to create better educational experiences for your students. I look forward to welcoming you to future events and hearing about how you're making a difference in your classrooms. Now remember, you can always get free resources on the Future You website, futureyouaustralia.com.au. And we're releasing new materials all the time, so make sure you subscribe to our free monthly newsletter to receive updates about those. I'll see you soon.